3 camera setup, a metal frame, a glass back, Full HD plus display. You think, okay, that sounds pretty expensive. But with the Elephone A5, you actually get that. But the question is, how much does it really give you for $199, and is this quantity over quality? Let's find out in this full review of the Elephone A5. So in terms of design, it's easy to see where they got the inspiration from when it comes to the back of this phone, with it looking very similar to the P20 Pro. Just don't expect the same camera features as that one though, but we'll get to that. In terms of design though, I have to give them some credit with one, the fingerprint scanner being on the side. That is something that really makes sense. It's the natural position for your thumb to actually rest, so it makes a lot of sense. And again, to its credit, most of the time this works really well and really fast. It's quite surprising. And unlike the P20 Pro, this phone also retains the headphone jack on the top. And when it comes to the general feel of this device, it does feel good, with the bottom weighing a bit more. But the build is really good if you compare it to some other budget phones out there. For instance, Xiaomi phones that tend to be around this price just don't have the same build quality as this one. Though with those, more budget went into getting more bang for its buck, so internals are better on those. But when we start the device, I have some things that I'm not a fan of. To start off, we know I'm not a fan of the notch trend. I just don't like it. I don't get why we have to push for a bezel-less display and then create a cutout. If it's the water drop notch, I'm decently fine with it, but I'd rather have something that Samsung does with the bottom and top looking the same. But the thing that I really don't like is the UI design on this device. It simply looks very cartoonish, and the camera app icon just doesn't really look like a camera icon at all. And because of the more cartoonish approach, normal icons like Chrome just stand out like a sore thumb. It just doesn't fit well with it. But let's look at the specifications for this device. We get a 6.18 inch display with a Full HD Plus resolution, a Helio P60 CPU, 4GB of RAM and 64GB of internal memory. It runs on Android 8.1, and in terms of battery we have a large 4000 mAh battery. Which in all fairness lasts pretty long, with it easily making it to the end of the day. Overall though, this device works decently smooth, with sometimes having a bit of stutter when it's just going on. More when you just unlock the device itself, but overall when you use it as a normal day-to-day use, you won't really notice it. However, with a phone that is shown as a 3 camera setup, we have to talk about that setup. And honestly, this is quantity over quality. With the main having a 12 megapixel sensor, the second one a 5 megapixel sensor, which is claimed to work together with the main camera, giving it a combined 1.28 micron pixel. And then we get to the third one. Now this is a bit of an odd one, but this has a 0.3 megapixel sensor. And yes, that's something from the old flip phone days. And I have the feeling that this is a separate sensor for the AI, and what makes me think that the third sensor is a separate sensor for AI is simply because when I'm in Pro mode in low light, it's said that I somehow block the AI sensor, a message I've never seen before. For me, that is really an odd one, but also an indication that, like I said, this is probably an AI sensor. But that is all fine. Let's talk about the result though that we get from the camera, shall we? To begin with, in low light, and honestly I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but in low light the camera falls flat because, well, it's a budget phone and you don't expect too much from them. In terms of sharpness but also grain, it's just not the best, with one picture looking acceptable. And then in normal lighting conditions, at the moment it is really hard to judge its dynamic range because the weather just simply isn't asking too much from the camera. However, images in normal daylight, albeit with overcast, can be pretty decent, but from time to time the dynamic range is still struggling, and it would be much easier to judge it properly if it was more consistent about it. Overall though, this is a budget phone and you shouldn't expect too much. But if you want something that is better in terms of camera for a budget price, I honestly wouldn't advise this one and look at something that Xiaomi does. So, the Elephone A5, what do I think at the end? Well, in terms of what you get for the price, it's a pretty decent phone. I really like the build of it, and of course the fingerprint scanner placement is really awesome on this one. And of course the headphone jack. Anyway, in terms of bang for its buck, this is not the best option out. I would look at Xiaomi for that, for instance. Apart from that, the 3 camera setup is clearly a gimmick. I think this is quantity over quality, and I think they should focus on just making the one camera really work well. I think it's decent in normal lighting situations, but in low light it does hurt itself. Apart from that, like I said, if you want a well-built phone that you can use for day-to-day use, this is just fine to use, especially with a 4000 mAh battery. that easily lasts you through the day. Anyway, this is my review of the Elephone A5. Let me know what you think in the comments below about this phone, and would you get something like this, or would you just look at an older high-end phone that is around this price as well? Let me know in the comments below, and of course talk to you guys in the next.